Hey moms, welcome back to Momestly Me. In today's video, we are going to be talking about our final thoughts as we wrap up our Humanizing Mom segment.
Yep.
So lots of things to think about.
So much to think about.
So we had 6 moms tell parts of their story or all of their story and share with us, and then of course we shared our own. So we came up with a few things that we wanted to touch on that really meant something to us.
Yep.
Hopefully things that we haven't already touched on. I'm pretty sure I tried to stick to not being repetitive.
We're going to find out.
We shall see.
Yes.
So we had our own things that we had to deal with and that we still deal with. So I know that things from other moms' experiences meant different things to both of us.
Right.
So when we read Dawn's letter, one of the things that stuck out to me, and I've actually recently experienced something with that I don't think I'd really given much thought to, was the jealousy of people who experience things that you don't, whether it's a milestone or a first. And it can be kind of hard. The moment that I missed recently, I don't think actually mattered that I was a working mom. I think that it would have happened regardless because my son just spends a lot of time with his grandmother. So I had actually been thinking about getting Oliver those chunky starter crayons and letting him color for the first time, because I thought, we're working on different things and he's getting really good at his grasp and stuff. So I thought, oh, it'll be a really good thing to do. And then literally within a week, my mother-in-law sent me a picture of Oliver's first coloring picture, which was not with me. And I'm sure some people are like, okay, it's a coloring picture, but I've never seen him do it. And it was a first that, I would have liked to have experienced. I was already thinking about doing something. I already feel like I missed so much because Rick's home with him and I'm not. So that was something I hadn't considered before that I recently experienced that still feels kind of crappy. But, and then, of course, the other things for Dawn's were, for me, was, she talked about self-image and identity and her body, and I still struggle with that. I'm still not in a place where I'm happy with my body in terms of how it looks and not understanding it. And I won't go too much into this, but I had really been struggling the last several months with energy. It's been months.
It's been months.
And I don't mean like a typical, oh, you're a mom and you work full time, so you're tired. Or, oh, you're a mom, so you're just tired all the time.
No, there was something wrong.
Yeah, there was something off. So I discovered that I had a vitamin deficiency, so I took care of that. And it wasn't enough.
Excuse me.
I still felt like it was to a point where I couldn't function. Like I couldn't function at work. I wasn't sleeping well at home. I couldn't play with my son because I didn't have the energy. It was horrible. And I finally, God, I finally think that I figured out what it was. And I do think that it was a contributing factor was my birth control. So I stopped taking birth control because it is causing, the side effects are not worth the possibility of not having a baby. So another baby. And so, so I stopped taking it and I'm on my 3rd week and I've felt so much better than I have felt in months.
Yes.
So I still deal with not knowing my body anymore and it changes all the time. And like the things that I have to do for my skin and the things that I have to do for my hair, which we were just talking about earlier today, like there's a lot. And I think that it's really relatable because aside from all of the heavier, more emotional things, one of the things that a lot of moms struggle with is self-image.
Absolutely.
And so for me, those were the things that stuck out about her that her letter to us that I just felt like I could most connect with, or that I had an opinion, or, that it had been some of my own experiences.
Right. And I think that I connected with Dawn more on the level of we both had scheduled C-sections for different reasons, but that was definitely something that although I have other mom friends who have had C-sections, none of them have just been scheduled for the first one.
Oh, wow.
So that
I don't think I realized
it was different. Well, I guess my sister-in-law, because my nephew was, what do they call it? Frank Thorne breech. He had his breech, but he was completely butt down, like not even feet down. He had like his he was in the fetal position, like when your knees are up towards your
Up towards your
chest.
chest, yeah.
So she had a scheduled one, and we chatted about that.
Mhm.
But it's definitely, but the way that I relate to Dawn is that it's okay if that's the route that you need to go, then it's okay to do that. Like, there's there is no shame in any way that you are able to birth your child.
Nope.
So that is definitely something that's a little empowering from Dawn, is that you can schedule a C-section and your baby's going to be here the safest way that the doctors can get them here. And that is reassuring for me, knowing that there are other moms that know and are okay letting other moms know that if that's the way you need to go, it's okay.
Mhm.
Because there are definitely moms out there that are like, you should go into labor. You should not just schedule a C-section. You don't know my body, so you shouldn't tell me what to do,
Yeah.
right?
And Dawn also got a lot of flack, and I wrote about this in one of our recent blogs that we posted. She also got a lot of flack because she just she just went ahead and said that she was going to have a C-section with her second child. And she got like, well, you could do a VBAC, and you just because you had one the first time, it doesn't mean that you should have it or could have it the second time. And it's just,
it's still none of their business.
it kind of, to me, it kind of falls under like the mentality of fed is best, safe
Yeah.
is best, and
Safe is
whatever
best.
that means. And anybody who thinks that VBAC is one, super easy, and two, doesn't come with its own set of risks is severely misinformed.
We're just going to go on that tangent for just a small second. VBACs, if you are able to do it safely, that's amazing that you can experience that
Yeah.
if you've never been able to experience that before.
And you want to.
And you
want to
want
have that
to.
experience.
I do wonder, what did I miss not being able to go through with my...
I'm not someone you'd want to ask.
I know. I know. But I wonder, like, would it have been the experience that I prepared myself for? Would it have been like your experience? I don't know.
Well, and I will say that even though my birth story is a bit traumatizing in some ways, it's certainly not as bad as Monica's. It certainly isn't as bad as other moms. And the other thing is I'm not, when I complain about it, I do it sort of haphazardly, because I'm not, I don't wish that I had a C-section. I wish that the epidural had worked.
Yes.
I wish that my son wanted to come out and meet me instead of stay in the womb forever.
That's right.
But at the same time, like, I just trusted my doctors to do what was right. And in the end, me being in pain, like I tell people, everyone's like, well, they always say that it's worth it, but I just can't imagine. It's like, no, but it is worth it. If I had to go through that again to have him, knowing that it was going to be that hard, I'd still do it. I wouldn't change a single thing.
Right.
Because safe is best.
Except for maybe not get the epidural next time.
Yeah, I'm definitely not going to. It just didn't do anything for me.
Yeah. But the biggest risk of doing a VBAC is if you are not one that heals very well. And this is not something that you know is going to happen until it happens. Basically, where your scar is, that tissue, as your womb grows, it can get really thin. It doesn't happen for everybody. It is still, so many people are able to have safe VBACs. It's a small percentage of ones that do not go according to plan. And it's just really, I haven't decided if it's worth taking the risk yet.
Yeah, but it's just like everything else. There are risks associated with vaginal birth.
Absolutely. Well, and so when you're doing that, if that incision, if that scar gets too thin, it can rupture. That is the biggest thing with a VBAC. And I think it's probably more likely when you've had multiple C-sections, because you're cutting tissue. They like to try to go through the same incision and make it smaller as you have more. But it's just, it can thin out, and sometimes it can rupture, and that can not be good. So I'm not saying one way or the other is better when you've already had a C-section. I haven't made that decision, and I probably won't make that decision until it comes down to it, whenever we do have another one.
But whenever
Um,
you make that decision, it will be what's best for you and what you want to
absolutely.
do.
It will be,
And people should just shut up and support it. Like,
that's right.
and that's the thing is like,
Yep.
and that's probably like, we do plan on doing a video about all these things that people say ugly things to you about,
Yeah.
but aside from that, like, yeah, I mean,
It'll be what my mind, body, heart, soul, whatever decides, and doctor, or
advises.
midwife decides in that moment.
Right.
If I go into labor, we'll see how it goes, probably. Who knows? If
Yeah.
not, I'll probably schedule one just in case. But that brings us to Monica,
Yeah.
who did not have a scheduled C-section. And we'd gone through the same. In fact, the reason that she found hypnobirthing was because I had recommended it to her.
Right.
And and it did help her a lot mentally going into her labor. It didn't help with the pain as much as she had hoped it would, because from what I understand, back labor is a bitch, and it is the worst, and sometimes nothing makes it go away. And the biggest thing with Monica, though, that I relate to really is just being her friend, because we talked so much leading up to that.
Right.
And when she was going through what we hoped was just baby blues, but turned out to be postpartum depression, like going through that entire thing with her, I'm gonna hopefully not get emotional this time. It's always emotional because I love her so much. She's an important part of our life. But just being there, even though I couldn't be there physically with her, like going through all of this with her was just, number one, eye-opening to things that I I thought that I knew about already, but I didn't.
Yeah.
Like there were different things with like the breastfeeding, and I tried as much as I could to help with that. But then there turned out to be other things that were a factor in her not being able to breastfeed, that the hospital let her down on not notifying her of. And maybe it could have been successful from the beginning had the hospital done a better job. And the thing about Monica that's most upsetting for me is how the hospital let her down.
Yeah.
Like, maybe if the hospital experience would have been better, if they would have done things better, differently, like talked to her, communicated more, then these things would have been figured out beforehand. They could have prepared her for the fact.
Would have been a little easier.
It would have been easier. The things that led to this downward spiral with the breastfeeding, they should have been seen at the hospital, but they weren't. They were overlooked. And it's just, I'm glad that she's in such a good place now.
Yeah.
You know, like she's much better, much healthier mentally, emotionally. She is in a really good spot for her now. And I wish she wouldn't have had to go through that though,
Yeah.
because it was heartbreaking. And I don't know if they're going to decide to do this again and have another one. I hope that if they do, then the next experience, we're gonna move them up here where we live or
Yeah.
something. Like, I hope that it's better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for me, the couple of things, I think from Monica's, I gained more perspective than I could relate. Well, I don't know. I guess that's not true. I think it's a little bit of both. The one thing that I realized was that like that those moments where you don't have control are more
Mhm.
common than not. Like a lot of people, depending on what you read and who you ask, there's a very specific cookie cutter outline for how labor goes and how your
Yeah.
doctor visit goes and what you should and shouldn't experience. And unfortunately, it's just not reality for
Mhm.
everyone.
Nope.
I mean, as good as my experience was, as good as like our hospital that we had our children at is good, there are
Yeah.
things that I absolutely will not tolerate if I have another child there because of
Right.
things that shouldn't have happened. And while they weren't as severe as the things that Monica experienced by any means, I lost a lot of control that I didn't realize I was going to lose either. And
Right.
then of course the other thing is I got to hold Oliver after they cleaned him up. It was only
Mm.
however long that takes. My concept of time for that is a blur, but I got to hold him, and not only did I get to hold him,
Yeah.
but I got my hour. I got to attempt to get him to latch, I'm pretty sure. And it just didn't really work. I was like so exhausted, and it was
Yeah.
just a heck of a day. But like I I, of course, knew that holding him for the first time is a precious moment, but I
Right.
will say that hearing that someone else was completely robbed of it, I think it gives me perspective to be even more thankful that I had that moment, even more grateful that my experience wasn't as shoddy as hers.
Right.
Because, and I didn't realize how much I appreciated that moment until I realized recently that I didn't have a picture of it. I was so sure that somebody had gotten pictures of the first time I held him because I'd seen them, and nobody has them anymore. And I'm getting pictures together for our website to update some stuff, and Melinda has this really great picture of the first time she sees Aria outside of the screen and stuff, and
Mm.
I don't have that. And I feel a bit robbed, if I'm being totally honest. And then the other thing, of course, was the breastfeeding, because I wasn't super successful. I was successful for maybe like 2 months. But I didn't have, and then, she didn't have any support afterwards either,
Yeah.
because her husband was gone, right? So
He was, yeah, he was at work a
he
lot.
worked. So
He
and
worked a
I
lot.
was I was very fortunate that was not the case for me. So
Yeah.
mostly I feel like what I got out of her letter to us was perspective.
Mhm.
Appreciate some things, pick up on things that I didn't really think about, and understanding that support that you have postpartum is just so critical
Excuse me.
to being like a little, or at
Yeah.
least as a little more woosah as you can be after having a newborn, especially if it's your first time. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And that is, yeah. It's that village. It's that village that we all need, and it's not always there for us. Like it's not always available. She lives in a small town,
And not even because people
and
don't care, but
no.
just because life just doesn't always work out
Yeah.
that way.
Yep.
Which, like, for example, we spoke to Queen, and Queen's husband is a truck driver.
Yeah. So when she had her first child, he was gone a lot. And she kind of equated that to be almost being like a single parent. And that kind of, it's, you, you hear sometimes like how people get pregnant and they don't expect it. And then they question, will we have a baby? Okay. Um, I think this might be the first time that I met somebody or heard somebody's story where it was their second child with their husband that they're in a committed relationship with, where they weren't sure if they could have this second baby.
Right.
And that is, number one, a huge decision. And they have their second child. Um, they were able to, make it work. And now she has these two beautiful children that she loves very much, but that there was a moment where life was so, they didn't expect it, they weren't trying for it, and life was so chaotic or just not what they thought, that they maybe were not going to have a second one. That
That it
is,
would be too much.
it would be too much. And not because they were teenagers not using protection or anything like that. They're a married couple. They
Yeah.
just, sometimes things happen and
Yeah.
they weren't sure if they could make it happen.
Yeah, because she was working full time, and she's doing a
Mhm.
lot on her own. And
Yep.
I mean, I know some people have mixed feelings about people saying that they're single moms when they have a partner,
Yeah.
but I think what's important is it feels like. That's important,
Yes.
because as much as you can say that you have a partner and you have someone to help you
Mhm.
and you have someone that is actively a part of your life, they're not there all the time.
Right.
And to me, like I say, like this past weekend, Rick was out of town. I felt like I was a single mom for those couple of days, because you're
Yeah.
doing everything alone. Like,
Mhm.
and it's fine for people to feel that way. It's fine for people to say that they feel like a single parent, because
Yeah.
they're the ones doing a majority of the work, because their partner is providing for their family in other
Right.
ways.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong. or shameful about
Yeah.
saying that. So I know there's people out there that are like, I'm not a single mom. I have a partner. It's like, okay, well, that's fine. You're probably the same person that doesn't want to be called a boy mom, even though all you got is boys. We're moving along. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think and I think the big thing for me with Queen that I liked that she talked about was how she was able on her own, being this woman who is the main provider for her kids,
Yeah.
in at least in a present sense, is that she forced herself to have alone time. Now
Yeah.
for her that meant the gym. That's
not what we do here.
no. But she's correct in that, like, that alone time is critical, and that
Mhm.
doesn't matter if you have a partner or not.
No.
Um,
You need you time.
you need you time. And I know I think right after that, I was talking about how my time got freed up when Ollie started going to bed early, which is probably what I would do for a second kid. I mean, once they reach a certain age, they go in a crib because that worked so well for us
Yes.
because it gave us back couple time. It gave us back us time to do things that we wanted to do. And it's not that we don't want our kids around or that we don't miss them, but like that alone time is important. And I loved that she talked about how they do things with her when she works out.
Yes.
Like she did kind of
Yes.
segue into like now, like, because
Now
her older son is 3.
I think so.
I think that's right. He would
He's a
do
little
things
bigger.
with her while she was on like the treadmill and like,
Yes.
and it kind of became, it was still time for her to kind of focus on her, but she was
Mhm.
able to share it.
Yes.
And I really like that she said that.
Yes, I definitely enjoyed that a lot. It's something that I I had all these high expectations of after Arya was born. I was going to stay in really good shape because I lost all the baby weight and
Right.
medical stuff. Now I've gained it back. But anyways, I had all these like plans. We're gonna go do a workout class. We're gonna do baby yoga. No, I didn't do none of that. But we still did things together. Like,
Yeah.
and I think as she's getting bigger, then like swimming, she loves to swim. Okay, loves to swim. So that's something I'm looking forward to, me being able to, because I need to swim. Like, I grew up with water, a lake, a pool. Like, that's something I need in my life in the spring, the summer, the fall, whenever it's warm enough.
I grew up
And
with all that too, but I don't like outside. There's sun and people. I'm not interested.
but I'm excited to
Right.
be able to do something like what Queen did and include Arya in
In
some
those
of those things. In some of those things, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because there's definitely more that I do than just float in the pool. And she loves the water so much and loves to move around in it that I think we'll be able to do something like that where it's still mental break me time, like, load off.
But you can still share. I mean,
But
I
we can
think, yeah,
still
you can
share.
definitely do both.
Absolutely.
And in terms of
Excuse me.
talking about, this concept of being a single mom, we did actually get to have a single mom on
Yes, we
as
did.
well.
Um, and I've known Nana for a long time. We went to college together, and she's always been this very go get 'em, very strong
I was gonna say she's very
personality.
strong. Yeah.
Very strong personality. I think that's one of the things that I liked so much about her when we met in college, and she's a lot of fun too. But she has definitely taken that into her mommyhood,
Yeah.
because I remember one of the big things, I was so surprised when she put a picture on Facebook of her holding this little newborn baby in the hospital. I was like, what?
Yeah, because she didn't say
What?
anything, right?
She
She was
didn't.
really kind of quiet about it.
She did not share on social media, just in her very close group, because it was not planned. That was not something she was ready for. She wasn't married. She had just started dating this person, and it was not something she was prepared for. But she took life by the horns, and she's in an amazing job right now. Nate just turned 4. And she has, over that time span, she has
Busted her ass.
busted it, man, busted it. And she has just shown single parenthood who's boss. I mean, it is super inspiring.
Well, you can
How
hear it
she-
if you've seen the video. If you
Yes.
haven't, you got to check out the rest of this playlist. But
Yes.
you can hear when she talks about having to coming to this realization where like this person
Mhm.
that helped create the life probably wasn't going to be what she could be on her own, so she just did it. Like you can
Yeah.
hear
Now,
the passion and
yeah,
drive, and it's there. It's in the tone of her
it's
voice.
absolutely there. And, you know, and it was hard at times because they went back and forth of,
Yeah,
is
they had
he
a
going to
couple
be
of
there? Is he not?
yep.
And he's involved in his son's life, which is amazing. But she's full-time parent.
Right.
And she works an amazing job now that she has earned her way up the ladder in these several years that she's been doing it.
Yeah.
And she's providing this wonderful life for her son because she feels that he deserves to have this wonderful life. He's here for a reason. He's made her a better person. I mean, there was a time where maybe neither one of them was going to be here because in her pregnancy they experienced a rather large knot in his cord. And I guess when he was born, there was very limited blood flow on the other side of the knot. Sometimes you have knots that don't actually affect anything. They're not tight. The blood flows freely on both sides,
Yeah.
but that was not the case for him. And they are so fortunate because she was able to give natural birth. They were so fortunate that both of them are here and thriving. And like she's just, I think that also made her, and I mean, she was already an awesome person, but I think becoming a mom has made her an even better person. And that's inspirational if you're a single mother or not. That a mom can do so much because this one tiny little person has
Needs them to.
needs them to.
Yep.
Like that they can. That's awesome.
I will say one side note about our conversation with Nana.
Mhm.
There was some shade thrown about the jersey or the T-shirt that I chose to wear that day because they were dressed in the Falcons and I was not. I would just like to add, do you know who won their game that weekend?
It's
not the
important.
Falcons, the Seahawks. So I just wanted to add that. I tried to do a voiceover for that video
Whatever.
and it just didn't happen. But just so you know, we at least won our game for that weekend. And we've won several since then. There are no memes about how bad we are. So that's all I'm gonna say on that one.
There are no memes currently.
There was.
Look.
They had one that had the Braves
I'm
on
in
it.
need for you to
Georgia football and
okay. Well, who's the SEC champion? I mean, they're going to the championship, okay? Alabama's not number one anymore. Anyways.
Thank God.
My husband's gonna be mad. Anyways.
So right. And then our last two that I think we're gonna talk about are probably the two of the heavier hits in terms of things that they discussed. And I mean, a lot of what they said was super impactful. And one of the things that, of course, stuck out to me so much. Well, first of all, Caitlin wasn't a friend, is a friend now. Married one of my best friends from high school. He and I had been friends for a really, really long time. We were really, really close. And then as life happens, I moved away and we really kind of sort of grown apart. We're still staying in touch, but, and I just thought because I was seeing things, she would tag him in things on Facebook and I would see, all the things that she said about their family and how beautiful she thought it was. I mean, she just said some of the most poetic, but still very honest things that I'd ever heard of people share about their families. So I decided when we had a couple people that we couldn't make fit into our schedule, or we couldn't fit into their schedule rather, I thought, well, let me just ask her. And she was super excited to be a part of it without any hesitation. I mean, we arranged our phone call with her in 4 days.
It was definitely less than a week that we.
It was less than a week, and so there were two things that I think were so crazy, because she apparently had only been with Trevor for like a couple of months. And then she got pregnant. And it's so funny because I didn't know that. I mean, Trevor and I never talked about their relationship. We've never talked about any of those things. And so I was like, oh, that's crazy, because one of the reasons that it's crazy is one, I didn't know it, but the bigger reason is they are a beautiful family. They have two boys that are worshipped in that house. And they have this beautiful life together. She's able to stay home. Trevor has a good job or great job. Like they have this beautiful family. And she even said in the phone call, you know, she was like, and I didn't want to get married just because we're having a baby. And they didn't. They got married later.
Later.
And then they had a second. And then I think she mentioned they may or may not have a third. But like that was crazy to me because you always hear these stories about people who get married and then they get divorced right away because they didn't really know each other, but like they have turned into this beautiful family. I mean, she posts every Sunday about his damn macaroni and cheese and burgers that he does for their family, and I love seeing.
Yeah.
You know, some of the stuff that she shares is really nice because some of it reminds you of like that she is not a picture perfect mom. She is not a picture perfect wife because one of the bigger things that came up in our conversation with her was, of course, mental health.
Right.
So, yeah,
It's heavy
it is.
because now she seems like she's in a good place now. They're in a good place, which is why maybe or maybe not they will have another one.
Right.
Because she had suffered through, and again, we didn't really know her before we
Talk to her.
before we talked to her and started this project, right?
Yep.
So, you know, we talked to Monica, who has suffered with mental anxieties and things through her life, and Caitlin has done the same, and she suffered through hospitalizations as a teenager.
Yep.
And then getting pregnant very young, very unexpected, like definitely messed with her mental health because when you're that young, you question like, what am I doing? What's going on?
Yeah.
How's this gonna work?
Yeah.
And
because she talked about like always thinking that she had to watch the baby breathe. Remember that?
Yep. When the baby was born, like it was almost instantaneous. It seems like from our conversation with her that I don't think baby blues were ever a thing. I think it was immediate postpartum depression because she was already suffering with different. She has suffered through depression a lot through her life. So I think there was already that edge and there was things happening and like it was like instantaneous and it became an obsessive thing of is the baby breathing? She didn't sleep. She was making her mental health worse, not intentionally because she thought she was
just trying
doing
to
the
be a
right
good
thing.
mom. Yeah.
And it's so eye-opening and also heartbreaking at the same time.
Yeah.
That again, you think you know different things about different situations, and then her depression was so bad that she was just going to leave and not tell anybody.
Yeah.
They lived with her parents at the time.
Right.
And so she had packed her bags and she was like, well, the baby's better without me. They're all better without me. Trevor will be okay. My parents will help take care of it. It'll be fine. I just need to leave.
Yeah.
And it was like that last minute she decided to tell Trevor.
Yep.
And that's when it all started to turn around because she just didn't seek help. And then once she did, it took time and it took medication and counseling, but like it's so important to have people in your life that can recognize different things like that and be there. And I don't know that Trevor knew at the time how bad it was. Maybe
no,
I don't
not
know.
as bad.
Not as bad, but I mean to suffer through that alone, even though you have people. You know what I mean? Like that is
surrounded. I mean, she
You're
was in a house with her
surrounded by
family all day, every day.
But they didn't know.
It's like that screaming in a room of full of people and nobody looks up.
Nobody looks up. And what's truly inspiring is that she was able to make it through.
And have a second baby, which
And
she
have a
did
second
say
baby.
she didn't have it with the second.
Right.
So
She did not.
because you just never know. You never know how it's going to be.
It is definitely hit or miss. But my take from Caitlin's story is that you definitely have to be aware. Talk to your mom friends. Talk to like if you are the one who might be suffering through something, it's important for you to reach out to whomever. I mean, it could be a stranger. It doesn't matter. Reach out to somebody. You have to let somebody know what's going on. Like our pediatrician, we had to fill out that. I had to fill out
Those
that
couple questions,
survey
yeah.
every time I took RA to a doctor's appointment,
Yeah.
and that's their
Those-
way of trying to check up on you.
Right. And the thing is like those aren't.
No, but at least it is something where they're trying to start a conversation just in case you can't start it yourself. But like my biggest takeaway is definitely communicating with your new mom friends, with when you've just had a baby, making sure you're communicating with people, whoever it may be, because unless you are communicating what's going on, nobody knows. And it could just work out or it may not. And like that's my biggest takeaway from Caitlin and her sharing everything with us is you've got to communicate with your mom friends.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Mm-hmm. Communication is key. Yes.
And then of course our final video that we had up from our little chats was our friend Erica.
Yes.
We've known Erica for a while, and we didn't know any of those things about her.
In fact, we were the first people that she ever told.
Yeah. So I think one thing that I definitely took away, of course, is that, you know, who we are or who we were and the things that we experience in our lives, like we kind of already know in the back of our mind, yeah, that's going to shape who we are in the future. But I don't think I've ever thought about the fact that it also impacts how you're going to be a parent. Because it makes you look at things in such a different light. And, you know, while hers is hard, I honestly, I can't imagine. I really can't.
No.
But, you know, I didn't have that. I don't have that background. But even I had weird feelings about changing Oliver's diapers, which I've already talked about. But like, it was just it was interesting and kind of honestly helpful to know that I wasn't the only person that feels that way.
Right.
And I don't know how I would have felt if I had a daughter. I honestly feel like I probably would have felt the same way. But it was just such an interesting thing to hear someone else say. Because I just kind of kept that to myself. I think the only person up to then that I had said anything to was probably Rick. So,
well, and like children being molested is not a new thing, right?
Right.
But it's something that people talk about more. But the conversation of a parent, of a mom who had that happen to them as a child, like that is, you don't think about those kind of things ever.
No.
Like you just don't think about like if somebody's like, oh, I was molested as a child, and you're like, oh, that's so unfortunate, but you're okay now.
Yeah, and you don't think about them being a parent and having to deal with
and having to deal with those emotions that they felt and how that's going to impact how they are with children in general in the future, but also like their own child. Like that's not even, we were not ready for that.
No.
Erica was actually the first person that we talked to.
Originally.
She was our last video because it's such a heavy topic. We wanted to save it for the end of the segment. But she was actually the first person that we interviewed. Yeah. And we were like, hey, whenever you're ready. And she started. And I'm pretty sure you can see in the video, like, our faces were just like, what? Like,
yeah, we had no idea.
No idea, because she's just the nicest, funniest, smile all the time, strongest, like, woman, person that we know. Like, highlight of the day when we got to go into the restaurant and work with Erica.
Yeah, she was great.
Like,
huge morale booster.
Yes. And there's so many things I could say that I got out of this. I can not relate to any of them, but that's okay because what I get from it is awareness and um, sensitivity
Yeah.
to this type of situation. Excuse me. Like it because it's not something that ever crossed my mind before. And
No.
and now it will always be in my mind because I definitely know other people that have had different situations at different times in their life and now I'm like how does that affect them? I'm not going to go out and straight up ask them,
Yeah,
but
but it
I
does make
mean,
you kind of think.
it makes me more aware of maybe if they're having some anxieties or they're having some like fears if, when they have a child, like it may make me more open to ask, are you okay? Is there anything that you want to talk about? Is there anything that I can do to help? Like more so than I normally would in a different, more sensitive way.
Right.
You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I mean I can relate on some level. So, um not from I didn't experience the same thing that Erica experienced, but I did experience a very different type of neglect from a parental standpoint in that my dad and my um, biological mother split up when I was pretty young.
Mm-hmm.
And so my biological mother had me for not very long, but for a little while. And as it turns out, long enough to cause damage. So the things that happened are kind of more or less irrelevant. But there were things that happened that changed who I am, and they changed how I parent. And I think that one of the big ones is, I remember being very pregnant, kind of far along, and one of the things that I would do is I would lay in bed when I was home by myself when Rick was working, and I would rub my stomach where Oliver was, and I would tell him all the time. I would make all these promises about things that I would never do, that I would never abandon him, I would never leave him with strangers, I would never choose drugs over him or my own life over him, that I would never do any of those things, that I would love him with every ounce of my being, and everything that I do is for him. And I have moderate abandonment issues. I have behaviors that I have as an adult that are shaped from feeling abandoned as a child. And I was very lucky in that, my dad had had married my mom at the time. She my stepmother, but my mom. And they got custody of me and they raised me, and they did everything that they could have done to be great parents.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing,
They made you an awesome, helped make you into an awesome person.
yeah, and an awesome mom.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so interesting because I am very like, I tell Oliver like so much how much I love him. And I'm sure that's a lot of
Yeah.
parents do that.
Yeah.
But I'm like very like, I touch his shoulders a lot, or I touch his face a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and I kiss his cheeks all the time, and I'm always touching his hair. And it's just, I think that when you've experienced things in a negative way, the way that I did when I was so little, you look at things in such a different light. And for me, it's like, how could anyone do any of these things to children? Like whether it's talking about molestation, neglect, abandonment, any of these things. But I will be kind of curious to see how it shapes how I am as Oliver grows, because one thing I'm grateful for is I did have parents that cared and raised me and worked their butts off to take care of me.
Yeah.
And because they raised me the way that they did, I'm very independent driven. I encourage Oliver to do everything on his own. And so I'm really glad that that part didn't change. But I just never really thought about past traumas or childhood experiences that shape who you're going to be as a parent. Like, And I certainly never would have thought of it from a breastfeeding standpoint, because you have people who shame mothers who don't
For
want to breastfeed, and you have
yeah,
no idea what the reasoning is, because one, it could just be because they just don't want to. But what you also could have to consider is that it could also be because they have intimacy difficulties because they
yeah,
were molested as a child. And you don't know what those circumstances are, and you don't know what their reality is or how they feel about any of those things. And so, and while I am not a shamer of that,
no,
I it definitely makes me think differently about women who don't do certain things,
sure.
including breastfeeding.
Absolutely. I mean, and truly it's nobody's business
That's true too.
but the
That's
mother
true
on
too.
how if they want to breastfeed or if they don't. But one of the things that really makes me angry is that there are a group of people who say breastfeeding is molesting your child. You ever heard that?
No.
It's messed up because it's not. And I hope that nobody ever said that to Erica because it's not. It's not molesting your child. And the people who say that should shut up because that's not what it is. You are trying your best to take care of your child and feed your child, and you're not molesting them. And if you already have a situation in your life where you went through molestation, if somebody says that to you, I can't, I'm, it makes
Yeah.
me angry to even think about the emotional damage that that is adding to somebody who went through that situation because they're just trying to do what they are, what is the right thing for their child. And like that is actually the thing that immediately popped into my head when Erica mentioned that
Mm.
about how she just was so uncomfortable emotionally,
And it felt, yeah,
mentally.
it felt wrong.
It did feel wrong. It to her defense though, it wasn't, it's what our bodies were made for, but there's so much hurt and it's not damage. It's just hurt and it's pain and I wish she didn't have that in her life. Like it's not me saying you work through it, you need to breastfeed. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just like those people that say that because they're ignorant makes me even angrier for people like Erica who are just fragile in that situation. And there's people like that in the world that are just going to make them feel worse and try to shame them when really they should be trying to help them and encourage them and be there for them emotionally.
Yeah.
Like, whew, a little boily right now because like I even before I ever got pregnant, I heard that
I've never heard that.
I used a baby app. So when I was newly pregnant, I used a baby app, and one of the forum topics was breastfeeding. And these people would go in there who have children, who are pregnant, and they would say those things. And I'm like, report you because you are not meant to be here. This is for people who are looking for encouragement and support and trying
Yeah.
to figure out
They
what
might
to
have
do.
questions or,
Yeah.
yeah.
Our if you choose not to breastfeed, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Fed. Your baby just needs to be fed.
Yeah.
But if breastfeeding is something that you want to do, it is literally what our bodies were made for. But not everybody can do it. Not everybody is able to emotionally or physically go through it. And for people to purposefully come in and say, you are wrong for trying to, though, that's that's not okay. They're using that M word and they're using it carelessly because when you have people who were molested and you're telling them that now they are damaging their child, that's not okay. It's not okay. And that's like when she told us her story, like immediately that's what I went to, and I just hope that nobody ever actually said
I
that to her.
feel like they probably didn't, mostly because I
Yeah,
feel like she probably would have brought it up.
probably, but
Yeah, I've never heard that.
I'm glad.
I'd probably dismiss it like a lot of the other BS that
Yeah, but
it's like you just open yourself up to so many other things when you become a mom, and people don't
yeah,
realize it. They don't realize what weight you have to take on simply because you chose to have a child because of
hmm
what people say and how they don't know to shut their mouths. Like,
yeah, it's
well, I'm the kind that will like I say things back, I will shut it for you. Like I'm not,
yeah,
you know,
and it's like one of the biggest things I think from this whole segment is learning to be more sensitive,
yeah,
learning to be, and not that
in a helpful way,
in a helpful way, like
not just like a
being,
way.
and by sensitive I mean like being more open minded,
Yeah.
being there for people, because we have all gone through such different scenarios, such like lives, like
And I already knew that, but this segment really kind of put that in the what's the phrase? I don't know.
in front of
It
your mind.
it really made it like clear. Like it's like
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's
Yeah, I think
yeah.
you know, when we were doing our original conversations about this segment and what we hope to get out of it, and first of all, we really appreciate you ladies taking the time
Mhm.
and opening up, because it's not easy to talk about a
No.
lot of the things we talked about, but it's really not easy to share it in a forum like this,
Right.
where it's going to be showed to who?
The
Lots
world.
of people, you know, like, and it's one of those things where like we can say it all day long, we can try to get your story out, but just know that like it means a lot to us that you took that time, whether you wrote a letter, you called in, it doesn't matter,
Yeah.
telling us your story and how you felt and the things that you went through. It just brings us one step closer to what we're trying to do, which is normalizing these conversations about
Mhm.
motherhood and pregnancy,
Right.
because that is something that is just not common. And we've talked about this and we'll continue to talk about this, but it's just one of those things where it's like there's this perfect picture and that's all you're allowed to talk about, and if it's not perfect then nobody wants to hear it unless they've got, you know, or they'll have all these judgments to say or all these things. And I think that's so important to normalize these negative things while still celebrating the positive.
Absolutely. I mean, you and some of these things they're things we never would have thought about.
No.
And like some of these people we've known for years and we had no idea.
And we
You
couldn't
know?
have known,
We
because
couldn't
sometimes
have.
like with Monica, when you met Monica for the first time, you wouldn't have thought you were going to have those conversations when
Nope.
when she started her own family. Like,
Nope.
and you know, it doesn't, it's just an interesting thing because it also makes you think about things that you feel, and in
Mhm.
some ways can bring actuality to what you're thinking. Like
Right.
you become a little more self-aware, you realize, okay, you know, I kind of have these things too, or
Yeah.
I didn't realize that I felt that way. Or like an example with the diaper changing thing,
Yeah.
I realized I wasn't alone. I wasn't the only person who thought that. And it made me
Absolutely.
feel less weird. It made me feel less isolated. And it
Mhm.
made me feel just less like a freak. Because then the other thing was, is I worried if I said things to people, they'd be like, well, are you a pedophile? Like, you know, because you
Right.
can't say things
You have to
without
be
all these
so careful.
yeah, and that's the thing is like we want to change these ideals, these
Mhm.
things that people think everything is supposed to be this way, and it's just not. And
Yeah.
we hope that at least for that part, I hope that anybody that watches this series that we did, I hope that that helps in some regard to kind of
Absolutely.
make you understand that like you're not alone. It's
Yeah.
not, you know, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not doing anything wrong. Like it's
Yeah.
just that everyone's experience is just so
So
different.
different. And you know what? I also hope that there's at least one person out there that they feel not crazy anymore. That they
Yeah,
feel validated
I
because
definitely do. I really
yeah.
do. I mean, I like the main two people in my life are Dawn and Melinda, and they are both crazy successful and continue to be successful with breastfeeding. And it's disappointing to me that I wasn't able to experience that. And I'm
Yeah.
like, there are times where they talk about it and I'm just like, can we please talk about something else? But the important part about that is that it's okay that I feel that way.
Absolutely.
It's okay that I'm disappointed because they have this thing that I don't. Like, but the benefit to this is hearing these other stories about women who don't have that. And it shows that, like, even though I'm surrounded by people who have X, Y, and Z, there are other people just like me who don't have those things either.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm happy that they don't have those things. It's
Yeah.
just that there's just something in human nature where you don't want to feel like you're the only one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely. And we can be as sensitive as we are, because I like, so probably maybe we'll do a video on it one day. But like when that happened, and I moving forward, like breastfeeding Aria in front of her, like I would ask, and she eventually told me just stop asking. But I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable, you know, especially my best friend, you know, like I don't want to make anybody feel isolated. And we can be as sensitive as the most sensitive in the world to that situation, but then we still can't relate on the same level.
And I think the other thing that I hope people understand is that just like it's okay for me to be sad or upset about it, it's also okay for them to celebrate it.
Yeah.
It's okay. And it's not that she's being insensitive. She's taking care of her child and she's doing what I would have done if I could have continued to do it.
Right.
So there has to be this line of, it's okay to be upset, but you can't expect people to not celebrate their things just because they might make you feel less. Now, if she was in my face all the time, if she had been like, well, you should have tried harder, that's different.
That's different.
But she was a constant support. Dawn is the only reason that I breastfed as long as I did.
Yeah.
She is the only reason. If she had not come over and showed me countless things to help me, suggested food, told me things to do, looked up things for me, I wouldn't have done it as long as I did. I would have given up before he was even a month old.
Yeah.
So, and then when I had the drop, you know, I had your support and her support just constantly back and forth. And that matters. Like that, it just has to be a balance. It's a balance of being upset, but also understanding that just because you're upset doesn't mean that they can't celebrate the things that they have. Because it would have been, it's no different than, I don't know, I'm sure I've had something. But like if Oliver does something before Aria, or Aria takes longer, Oliver takes longer, it's not fair for me to just say, well, you know, well, forget your kid because mine's not doing it yet.
Yeah.
You celebrate together and you talk about the negative together and you grow together, and it creates that support that we're trying to do.
It creates, even when it's just like the two, the three, it creates that
mini village.
It's the little neighborhood inside of the village, right? Like
the little cabin. I don't know. Like in 4-H camp when you got like 30 kids in a 4-bedroom.
That's right. That's right. But I mean,
yeah,
I am super grateful for these 6 women who
me too.
volunteered to open their lives to us,
yeah,
to the world, all to let other women know that they are not alone, and to maybe for themselves to feel more normal too. Maybe like for Erica, who never told anybody until she told you.
And I think she told us, I don't remember if she told us this before we stopped recording, but she did say that she felt better after she talked to us. I don't remember exactly what she said, but it was before we got off the phone with her. Yeah. And she said that she felt, I don't know if validated is the word that she used, but she did say that she felt better. And I think that that's part of it. It's like we said before, we don't have solutions. We don't have answers. The only thing we can offer is validation and support.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's what building a village is about. It's finding other women who can offer 5 minutes, who can offer an ear, a shoulder, a
text
hand,
conversation,
a text, something, and a smiley face, you know, like an emoji, something. Like to have the opportunity to share this with the world is amazing
Yeah.
and humbling, and
It means a lot to us.
it does.
I mean, this was the first thing that we wanted to do for our channel.
Mhm.
And we've talked recently, and we're going to try to continue it as
Mhm.
different segments of the same Humanizing Mom, and
Yep.
just in different things. Hear other women's stories, share
Yep.
other lives with you that, you know, are so different from what we've heard already.
So
Because
different.
I mean, and that's what we need. You can't build a village without the foundation.
Yep.
It's important.
And you know, if this is if this is something that meant something to you, if you got
Yeah.
something out of this, let us know.
Yeah.
Please comment below, or go to one of our social media channels, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Send us a message.
Yeah.
If you don't want to comment on this video, send us a direct message and
We
let
will
us
reply
know.
right away.
Absolutely.
Short of sleeping.
Like that. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, but let us know, because that's our hope. That is, I don't want to say that's our goal. That is our hope,
Yeah.
is that we can connect women to other women and just build this village of moms everywhere. So yeah, let us know. Comment here, send us a message.
Yeah.
Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, it's all at Momestly Me. Put a like on this video,
Yeah.
subscribe to our channel, hit the bell, because like she said, we want to continue this series. We are going to take a break.
Yeah.
We're going to take a couple of month break, and maybe we'll be able to bring another season to you in a few months from now.
And if it's something that you want to be a part of,
Yeah,
and you want to share your own story, let us know. We want
Please.
moms from everywhere, not just people we know,
Yeah.
not just people who live down the street. Everybody.
Everybody.
So if you want to be a part of it, let us know.
Yeah, we would love to have you. We welcome you.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because it's not just the village here. It's everywhere. It's all of you. You are all part of our village, and we are so grateful for that. And yeah, until our next video, until our next season of Humanizing Moms, we'll see you later. Bye.